Welcome to the 17th day of August 2025. I didn't have to pause after the year to think, reflect on the year. My name is Kurt, and this is my daily Good Life meditation video, a live video exercise that I do every morning about this time to remember my life objectives and principles, those which are outlined in my book, Going Alone, which you can read for free at goingalone.org. I also use this time to think about yesterday and last night, namely the last 24 hours since I did this same video yesterday at the same time, to see how I did with any interesting, noteworthy, or exceptional, either positive or negatively, exceptional challenges or opportunities that I met along the way yesterday, or to comment on the atmosphere of the day as well, or the season of my life. Sometimes it's time for a broad-based reflection. I use this time as well to go over the 8 objectives of my creed in one by one. I think about one of my principles in depth, and then I plan for the coming day. But first, I want to say hi to the new subscribers to the channel. Welcome. My name is Kurt. I'm a 61-year-old retired American living here in Japan. My wife, Yumiko, is also 61, and we're here in this house that we bought a few months ago. Our daughter lives up in Tokyo, living her adult life. We're both, Yumiko and I, are getting used to, in some cases, struggling with this new way of life, the freedom that comes of being retired, of being empty nesters. It's more of a challenge than I ever imagined. Well, I kind of thought it was going to be hard. I just didn't think it would be hard for me. I always thought retirement would be hard for other people. I thought I was ready. I know I'm getting ahead of myself. I am a YouTuber, so to speak. I've had a YouTube channel for a long time. I make reliably 2 videos a day. This video and another video in a series that I call Retiring in Japan, which is more like a daily journal blog. Well, I guess they're both journals. This is a reflective journal relative to my values. The Retiring in Japan journal is a daily blow-by-blow activity. It's like almost like real life TV of what happened to me throughout the day, and to greater or lesser degrees of detail. I think that's all I need to say by way of introduction. A disclaimer: this is a journal video that you're watching right now. It is live. As such, since it's a journal about my life, I am at liberty to talk about my life in any way I want. I typically do not cuss, so you don't expect, even though I'm giving myself free license to say anything, I'm very unlikely to say any naughty words. It's just not my nature. But I will talk about thoughts that may be disturbing to some people. For example, death. It comes up every day. So I will talk about death a little later, namely my own preparations for death. That's a proven topic to make people uncomfortable. So just your heads up, you're forewarned if you want to stick around. Feel free to comment, although I don't read comments until I'm done. Feel free to criticize if you like as well. I welcome all perspectives and observations, but be aware, please, that I'm onto the game, kind of. If that doesn't sound too self-congratulatory, but maybe I deserve to make it such, because it took me decades to get to the point that I'm onto the game. I know now that when people are leaving comments and criticisms, I'm telling you this by way of the fact that this is not just something that I'm telling you. This is something that I know now, and it truly impacts the way I see what people write to me. I know now that what people are typically saying is far more illustrative of what's going on in their lives and in their minds. Even the worst criticisms that they offer me are telling us more about that person than anything about me. So I hear what you're saying, and I hear the criticisms, and I see the trolls, but I also just want to let you know that I'm largely at this point invulnerable to unreasonable criticisms and observations. If you offer me a criticism that can be bounded by reason and illustrated to be legitimate it as such, then I'll take that on board. Now, here's the other thing. If that's the case, then that's not going to bother me because, hey, you've offered me a legitimate criticism that is reasonable and within the scope of critical observation and analysis. I need to, and I'll be grateful. I'll be thanking you, even if you couched it in nasty language. I'll be very grateful to you. So I win in that case because then I've gained an improved perspective by virtue of even the harshest criticism that someone might offer. If, however, you're telling me something and you're telling me just to be mean or just to ameliorate your own, discomfort, then I'm probably going to see about that as such. And it's not going to hit with too much depth. Although, even though I'm talking a big talk right now, it's not always the case. My own mother knows how to wound me dearly, and she makes efforts to do so each and every day, and she succeeds quite often. So I'm talking a big talk. Let's see if I can actually fulfill that. So, but that's what a lot about self-improvement is, right? Is talking the talk about the man or the woman that we want to become, and then endeavoring to fulfill that mission, that self-proclaimed mandate, and then tuning ourselves as we go along the way. So I'm talking like I can take the criticism, but I can't always, but you get the point. All right, so enough of that disclaimer. I do also want to say a sincere thank you to my supporters, those who watch my videos. Your views and your engagement mean a lot to me in the algorithm, and also to those that are my members on YouTube especially, and my Patreon supporters especially. Thank you so much. Let's get started. So my notes from yesterday, which was an interesting day, it was a Saturday. I took the day off, and my note here is simply one. It says, a miserable day of rest. I was miserable yesterday. I really didn't like yesterday. More so, now well, you might be thinking, well, what are you talking about, Kurt? You're retired. You're going into your 8th month of leisure of rest. Well, yeah, true, but for 6 months of that time, I was very busy, settling into Japan, finding and renovating this house, and getting used to my life. And it's only been in the last month or so that I've really started to feel like I have days that I wake up and they're truly my own to do as I see fit. And I really quickly got in front of that, and something inside and deep in the back of my mind was saying, this is dangerous. Danger, Will Robbins, danger. Do something, Kurt. And I started my business, right? So that was me subliminally reminding myself, you, Kurt, are not someone who likes freedom. You, Kurt, are not someone who can rest. You don't like sitting down. The worst thing that you can possibly do, Kurt, is the friggin', yes, I promised I wouldn't cuss, the friggin' worst thing I can do with my free days is to sit on the sofa and watch Netflix. What an awful thing to do. And guess what I did most of the day yesterday? I sat on the sofa and watched Netflix. And I would classify that as a miserable day of rest. I actually wrote it in notes. Miserable friggin' day of rest. I hated it. Now, it's a funny thing. You can, sometimes enjoy your torture a little bit. I mean, I'm still watching the Netflix series Mo, which I really enjoy. I really like the story of Mo. It got a little corny when he went down to Mexico, but now he's back and sorting things out, and he and Maria might be getting back together, and I'm actually enjoying this series. But I used this analogy this morning when I was writing my blog post. Yesterday and today feel like a man that has reluctantly agreed to go to church with his family on a Sunday. That 50s, 60s trope. Wife and the kids are all dressed up and dolled up for church, and dad wants to stay home and rest and maybe watch the game. And maybe once in a while he agrees to go, and after the service, the pastor meets them out front and says, well, Mr. Smith, it's good to see you here on a Sunday. Now, I feel like, maybe Mr. Smith shows up and he sits in a pew with his family once in a while. And maybe, once in a while, he actually enjoys the sermon. That was a good sermon, Pastor. I'm really glad I did. I'm really glad I came today. Maybe I'll be here next weekend. Yeah, he doesn't want to be here next weekend. Probably won't be there next weekend, next Sunday. But it doesn't mean that Mr. Smith didn't enjoy the sermon. That was me yesterday watching Mo on Netflix. I was really enjoying it, but I didn't want to be there. I was Mr. Smith at church, happening to catching the sermon on a good day, the pastor on a good day with a good relevant sermon. I didn't want to be there. I did not freaking, gosh damn. Look at me, I've been doing it. I'm not, like I told you, I made a disclaimer, an outright disclaimer that I wasn't going to curse. Leisure is driving me to curse. I sat on that friggin' sofa there for hours watching Netflix. And I got up through the day and I did some things and this, that, and the other thing, but I was forcing myself not to work because it was a Saturday and I told myself I shouldn't work, that I felt like I was being drawn in to this thing. And I was not feeling good. I wouldn't say I was depressed yesterday. It was just, it was like Mr. Smith at the damn church and when he didn't want to be there. It happened to be a good sermon. What an interesting thing. So that's what yesterday was all about. Guess what today? Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Today's going to be the same. It's a Sunday. Now, I need to find a way to reconcile this some way. Monday through Friday, clear game. Those are my work days. I can work all I want. And I'm going to, thank God it's almost Monday tomorrow. Thank God it's almost Monday. I get to go back to work. Thank God. If you don't know, if you're new, I started an antique business, so I sell antiques online, Japanese antiques on eBay. Thank God I get to get back to my business. I learned a lot about myself the last 48 hours. Man, oh man. My wife has joined me in the business as well. On Friday, she took a shipment to the post office. She's going to take over fulfillment. And I'm going to lean heavy into that. Every day, I'm not going to go to the post office anymore. If she's available and willing, I'm instead going to prepare the shipments and pass them over to her. And maybe she'll get to the point that she'll prepare the shipments as well. In a way, this is really nice because my wife's still very busy with the house. I'm kind of on hold on any projects with the house because I'm waiting for next year. Right now, we're living on my pension, getting by. My pension is good. It actually delivers more to my bank every month than we actually need to live on, but not enough to actually engage in doing stuff, right? And I'm still paying my daughter's college loans. So I'm trying to avoid doing anything with the house myself until next year when Social Security kicks in for both Yumiko and I. We're going to kick it off early at age 62, first chance we can. And then once we're combined with Social Security and my pension, we'll be in very good shape for the rest of our lives. Then we can take on the other projects in the house. So Yumiko, though, she is taking on piecemeal little cheapo projects around the house. So as long as she's doing that, if she doesn't want to get involved in the business, I'm not going to say, I'm just going to say, hey, this shipment, I can go to the post office or you can. But it's an open door, right? So, because if she gets to the point like me, where she's like, I don't know what to do with myself in this freedom of retirement, then she has an open door to join me in the business. So I will prop that door open with a rock and let her come in as whenever and if ever she wants. And if she doesn't, then more work for me, because I like going to the post office. Because after I go to the post office, I go to 7-Eleven for a cup of coffee. That's fun. Okay, so I think I've covered yesterday in enough detail. Very revelatory of my character. I learned a lot about myself. I learned that it's too late for me to enjoy freedom. It was probably too late by the time I was 25. The die had been cast at that point. The man that I am now was made as I finished university and headed off into the workforce. And that's all right. That's just fine. I know, dare I say, I know the formula for happiness in my life. And the formula for the happiness in my life is the good utilization of time. Surprise, surprise. Hashtag time. One of the objectives. In fact, it's objective number 2 in my book. The good and effective use of time. And I know what the good and effective use of time means at this point in my life. It means living a life in the pursuit of virtue. where virtue is defined as the improvement of the well-being of thinking creatures. But that's not work. What are you talking about, Kurt? Well, you're angling after two separate things. That's true. It isn't work, but I guess I've just spotted a branching. I've just spotted something that I haven't fleshed out. Well, if that's not work, okay, what is it work? Well, work is for me. Work. Okay, that's the part. Okay, that's important. I think I just spotted something. I've worked all my life to have this time to do what I want, and what I want is to live a virtuous life. But I also want to work because I like work. I like work without stress. I don't want to work at my old job. I don't want to work at any other job. I don't want to work where I have to have a boss, or that I have to clock in, or that I have to abide some standards that I didn't decide of myself, because my standards are reasonable. And so I've got my own business, and that's fine. Told you, this is my own journal. I can go anywhere, any way I want. And I haven't cussed yet. Okay, let's go over the creed. My creed consists of the following 8 objectives. Number 2 I just told you about. Number 1, the most important one, is that I'm always ready to die. This means I need to have my affairs in good shape, my relationships need to be in order, and my life's work needs to be complete. Check, check, check. All 3 of those are in great shape. I am ready to die right now. Doesn't mean I want to die. It means I'm ready to die. Big difference. Big, important difference. The second objective is to make good and effective use of my time. And that includes the time that I have to do as I want. Good and effective use of time for me, I'm not saying for you, I'm not saying for anybody else, for me is not sitting on my ass watching Netflix. That is a waste of time for me. I don't want to live like that, and I'm going to try to avoid living like that. I still haven't been able to figure out what to do on the weekends, because weekends feel like I shouldn't work, but then again, it's my own damn time. I should spend time with my family though. I'll work on this. My third objective is to develop and maintain good and sound life principles, which is precisely what I spent 8 years doing, writing and reading, writing and editing, which consisted of a lot of reading, of going alone. And by the way, I wanted to make a note about my book that I've never said before. It came up yesterday. There was a commenter that left a comment that was finishing the book up, and I had mentioned to the commenter that, to the commenter that I think it's Jim Jam Birds, the young pilot, that my book was never meant to be a novel. It's not the type of book that you read, la 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 la, page after page, and it tells a story. It doesn't do that. It was meant to be a reference guide, to be in the course of a life, something that I wrote it for my daughter. And I wrote this to be able basically to give to my daughter, to say, here's a reference guide that Dad wrote to carry with you through the course of your life, to refer to. It's true, it's couched in fable and story and almost mythology of a sort. That is the story of the discovery of the great indifference, and the journey into the desert, and the coming home, and the muse, and all that stuff, the ghosts of Siberia, all that stuff's in here, like good mythology should have. It should have some ghosts. But it's not a book to be read. It's a reference guide that I hope that maybe periodic. My vision all along was that I would give this to my daughter, and that it would pass along. I don't know if Emily will actually ever have an interest in it. Maybe she will, but maybe it'll if it's a good hardbound edition, maybe it'll pass from generation to generation, and maybe my great grandchild will pick it up and carry it with them and say, "This is my great grandfather's book. Wow, it's even got a picture of him on the back. Wow," and they'll carry it with them, and maybe once in a while they'll pick it up and they'll read a page and see. I wrote it to be like that. See how these chunks, and then I put these tildes here to mark it off. So you can read this part, and then it's okay if you don't read anything in front of it or behind it. You can just read this part. It's just 2 paragraphs, or just one paragraph, one long paragraph. Just read that. Close the book, and then it planted a little seed in your head. And if whoever reads it reads like that through time. That's exactly how I read Walden. I had Walden when I was 16. I carried it with me for decades. I read it bit by bit, opened the book to various pages, and it almost by osmosis, soaked in. And Thoreau's mandate, I wouldn't call his book a book of principles. His mandate, his and Emerson's mandate, sunk in and caused me to then march to the beat of my own drummer, hoping to make Thoreau proud. So that's how the book is intended to be read. I really should have probably put a little disclaimer in there, but I don't care. I didn't, and I won't. So Thoreau had no such disclaimer either. It just kind of came out that way. So my fourth principle is to cultivate, my fourth objective that is to cultivate good emotional reactions, to become a human being who reacts well to challenging circumstances. There was an incident that happened yesterday that I think I can illustrate that. I should have added it to the note. I think I encountered a bit of thievery yesterday here in Japan. I went to the 100 yen store to get a lighter, or 2 lighters, because I wanted, for the Katori Senko, keep this thing burning. You see it's got the little mosquito coil there, making up the smoke. I've got a bamboo forest in my backyard full of mosquitoes. So if I keep this burning in the vicinity, it works beautifully. I don't think I've been bit by a single mosquito this whole summer up here on my balcony running that. But, I have to keep the coil. One coil will last almost a whole day, at least during the daytime. Then I needed a lighter, and I wanted to get one for my wife. So I went down to Lemon, and I got 2 lighters and a pack of Shigekiksu candy to add to my stash, because I sell that stuff. And I went and paid for it. Well, okay, I'm lying. I bought it for myself. I bought the Shigekiksu for myself. So I went down and I went up to the register, and I handed the gentleman behind the counter the 2 lighters and the Shigekiksu. He rung them up, and it was like 315 yen, like $1.80 or something like that. So I counted out the exact change from my little change pouch, and I gave him the money. And there was no bag. He asked if I wanted a bag. I said no. And he put the money, I wasn't really paying attention because I was focusing on the change. He just put the money there, pushed the candy and the 2 lighters over to me. I picked them up, and then I stood there because I'm such a habit now, and I didn't need the receipt because these were for our own consumption. But I'm such a habit now to pick up receipts for my business that I waited for a receipt. And he looked at me and he said, "Oh, do you want a receipt?" And I said, "Yes." And there were people in line. And he said, he was kind of flustered. And he asked me to give him the stuff back, which I handed everything back to him. He then scanned the 2 lighters, scanned the Shigekiksu candy, and pushed it back and gave me my receipt. Then I realized he had put the money aside, and took the money from the aside and put it into the register and did the register thing. Little alarm bells started going off in my head. And I thought, and I used hashtag Temperance to control that. And I used hashtag Reason to say, grab that damn receipt, Kurt, put that in a safe place. I didn't know exactly what was going on, but I knew that was my safety net. And I left the store. I grabbed my stuff and I left the store. Then I went out and sat in the car, and I used Reason, again, hashtag Reason, to think a little bit about that and controlling my emotions. Remember, that was the 4th objective, is to have someone who responds well responds well emotionally, to cultivate good emotional reactions. And I thought, what the hell just happened in there? Because clearly the register was working, but clearly he was doing something extra register with the money, our transaction. And I think one of 2 things happened. Either one, he was engaged in a little thievery, where he was doing an extra register transaction with a foreigner who wasn't really paying attention, because I was so focused on my change pouch that he thought he could just total it up in his head, tell me the amount, get the money from me, put it aside. I could walk out the store with the goods. He could pocket the money, right? A little bit of inventory slips out of the store. A little bit of money slips into his pocket. No one's the wiser. That could be one possibility. Now, yeah, I don't mean to cast aspersions on that cashier, but I've been put in a situation by virtue of that. And then the second option, the one that a little more scary, was, and because I did something that just before that might have aroused his attention, and I realized I kind of slapped myself on the wrist a little bit too. The place where the lighters were just around the corner from the cashier. There was nobody. The store wasn't crowded. He was standing there behind his register. The lighters were there, and Japan has these lighters have these two types of lighters. There's these like regular lighters that you think about that have the little dancing flame, and then they have these like little gas jet lighters. You pump it, and it's like a little blowtorch. I don't want that blowtorch. I just want the regular flame. Well, I'm actually okay with either. But I know my wife is a purist. She's an old school, and I was getting a lighter for her, and I knew she wouldn't like the blowtorch one. So I was trying to find the lighter that had just the standard flame, the analog flame, to use a word. So I was actually going through a couple of the lighters, click to look at the flame, click. I had my lighter aside. I was going to take the blowtorch one. Actually, I think that's kind of neat. And I was trying some different lighters out, click, looking for a standard lighter, and they didn't have them. I couldn't find one. I used them all. I must have done a half dozen clicks trying to find one. I saw him peek around the corner because he could hear somebody doing click, 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 gauging the lighters. And then as soon as I saw him look around the corner at me, I was like, oh, I'm doing something bad, right? Because that's like sampling the grapes at the supermarket, right? How's that grape? On the surface, it seems innocuous because it's not going to weigh. The grapes that you take aren't going to weigh into the scale, but you know what I mean? It's just not the right thing to do. I did that when I was a teenager. I stopped doing that when I reached the age of reason. Anyway, so I stopped that. Unfortunately, I was done, and I grabbed the lighters and I did it. So the second thought that went through my mind, and this is the scary thought, probably me having too much imagination, was what if he was setting me up for a fall? What if he was pissed off at me because I was the guy that was doing the lighter thing, and he was setting me up for a fall to then let me walk out of the store without a receipt and yell, "Stop, thief." I don't think that was likely to happen, but it's a possibility. It's a scary possibility, right? So that's where I'm coming back to objective number 4, the cultivation of good emotional reactions. I don't think it was likely to happen, but as soon as I was sitting in the car and I thought of that thought, the emotions started to rise. I'm like, oh my gosh, what if, can you just imagine the scene, right? Police come to me and I had this stuff from the store in my pocket. Where's your receipt? I don't have a receipt. I gave him the money. He gave me any money. That's a scary thought. I'm feeling that emotion right now. Hopefully that's not what was in store for me. But definitely something was going on. Definitely some fishy business was going on because that register was working, and he had put the money aside, and he was waiting for me to walk out the store with the goods in my pocket, no receipt, and what was he going to do with that money? I think he was going to pocket it. Now, I know you're probably thinking, well, what are you going to do about it? Well, if I was more capable, if I was back in my own country, I would go talk to a manager. Say, hey, listen, because I've got the receipt, the timestamp. I don't know if you guys keep track of who was on register, because he's probably doing that. If that's what's happening, leave it up to the management to figure that out, sort that out. I might do that. I talked to my wife about it. She suggested that we do that. But that doesn't mean me do that. That means she do that. Because I can't, right? I walk up to the place. I say, "Ano ne, datte ne, kino wa watashi wa shigekiksu to kaimashita ne, ano hito wa, demo, ano hito janai, kono jikan no, register, ano hito wa, register wa." They're going, what the what's this foreigner doing? Call the cops. So I can't do it. But if Yumiko, and I'm not going to press her, but if she wants to do it, then we'll go down and do it. I kept the receipt. So that was interesting. So that was illustration of, and of an incident of illustrating objective number 4, the cultivation of good emotional reactions. Objective number 5 is the performance of good actions relative to my values. Number 6 is to recognize my true limits and true opportunities. So I I know what is within scope of my capabilities. Why am I pestered all of a sudden with the thought that yesterday was such a rotten day that it would have been so much better a day if I had just worked? Maybe I should just become that guy. There's this, if you watch the show Midnight Diner, it's on Netflix. It's a really popular show among the foreign crowd. It's not so popular here in Japan because it kind of shows an idealized Japan that maybe really doesn't really exist. It's the dream Japan that foreigners imagine when they want to think that they come live here. I mean, it's all based in reality, but it's not really the case. Japanese people don't watch that show. At least I've brought it up with them. None of them that I know, and I don't know very many, but none of them do. There's a character in that, in a scene. There's a man. He's from Osaka, and he's a businessman. He's kind of bald and he's got a toupee, and he's trying to have an affair with a young woman who later we learn is his daughter. They don't have an affair, but he is that right? Is it his daughter? I think so. That's beside the point. He's a decent guy. He's definitely from Osaka. He's got the big personality as Osaka people do. And he's the Osaka people have this kind of this reputation for being, business savvy. They're scrappy. They'll start their little ceramic store and they'll grow it into a chain of 3 or 4 stores run by the family, and it'll be all headed up by the patriarch that kind of works his employees to the bone, and you get the idea, right? I mean, every culture has those people, right? And has a class of people that fill that role. He is one of them. He's very successful. He's got a chain of whatever the business is. He's got a chain of it. He makes a lot of money. And even though he could have retired a long time ago, he's going at it, bam, bam, bam. And he's got this life. He comes out and he goes to the club. And he goes to the Midnight Diner and because the Midnight Diner, the master there makes a dish that, even though that's in Tokyo, that represents his life in Osaka. And he likes that. Anyway, there's one episode where his wife shows up at the diner, and he's there, and I think he's talking up this young girl, and he's got the toupee and stuff like that, and he's talking it up, and the door opens, and she says Anata, which is how Japanese women say dear, and he turns around and he runs his hand through his hair, and he says "Irashai," it's like welcome, like how a master would greet, because his wife has caught him in the act, of womanizing, right? And she's like, and she's nicely dressed. She says, I'm, she's mad at him because he's clearly out drinking and womanizing. But he's like, I don't mind these things that you do so much, as long as you're working. Yes, dear, yes, I'm working. I've got all kinds of ideas, right? So what I'm trying to say is, I'm not a womanizer, but I could become that guy who just basically is working all the time. And my wife isn't a gold digger. She's not one who necessarily wants much of anything, and I think she would prefer to have me around and working all the time. But clearly, when I'm happier when I'm working. Like, I'm happier if I'm working hard on a Saturday, and Yumiko says, "Hey, let's go out to lunch," and I'm like turning from the business. Okay, yeah, let's go, and I'm buying. Let's go. And I'm happy. I'm talking about stuff. I'm talking about work. I could become that guy. It's not such a bad thing, right? Okay, my 7th objective is to do just one thing at a time, and do that thing slowly and carefully, deliberately through my life. To not multitask as much as possible. And number 8 is the 8th objective is the culmination of the 7, the aforementioned 7, is to achieve a state of balance where it's really hard for anything to knock me off my footing. Imagine standing, arms akimbo, legs spread out, try to knock me over. Life, you're not gonna have much luck, because I'm prepared. That's the consequence. You don't really have to. I really don't have to act out. To have to do anything to achieve balance on its own. I simply have to abide, attend, and live out the first 7 objectives results in a balanced life and mind. Oh, one more bit of note that I wanted to share with you. I had an interesting encounter with the new patriarch of our family here in Japan. There's 2 sides of the family. There's the Suzukis and the Inoue. And the Suzuki clan is my wife's father's clan. He married into the Suzukis because they didn't have a son. So they basically married one and adopted him. This is the thing in Japan. He changed his name officially, became a Suzuki, and he no longer an Inoue. That's totally a thing here in Japan. You know, families that have a family business that don't have any sons, they'll just adopt one in through marriage, and you're with us now. That's a good utilization of the second and the third and the fourth sons in the family that aren't heir to the throne. He was number 2. The number 1 son, we call him Mikan. He lives down the road. He's very wealthy. He owns all kinds of land throughout this valley, apartment buildings, houses, all kinds of stuff. And he's 92. He's finally at the age where, after over 70 years of farming, he's given up his health isn't so good. His oldest son is taking over the reins of everything. And this is the year that the farms have gone feral. This is the first year his rice fields up the valley are just weed fields now because he's too old to farm. And his older son didn't take up the thing. And I was talking to him. I ran into the oldest son. You actually can see this if you watch today's upload of Retiring in Japan. I was in the car getting ready to go into 7-Eleven, and I saw him over there, and he was like gesturing to me, and I was in the car, so I turned the camera off and went and talked to him, all in Japanese. He's one of these few people that I can speak with ease in Japanese too. For some reason, he speaks to me in a way that I can understand what he's saying. So he's a good guy. He's got some quirks. He's got some things, but he's a first son. His quirks are probably more related to his circumstance than anything else. He's the first son in a long lineage of first sons where his life, place, and privilege was always known. He was never expected to have a job. He was never expected to go out into the world, wasn't expected to go out and get an education because he would take over the family business. He was expected to farm and run and take over the estate, 400-year lineage of that family. Anyway, so I was talking to him, and I asked him if he's been busy, and he said, not really. But he said he's going to start getting busy because he said he's going to start to try to take over the farms and, rescue the hatake, the fields from the weeds. So that's interesting. Sure, a little bit of tiny bit inside of me was like, oh, you need help? But no, I don't want to go down that road. No, I don't want to be a farmer. I found my course with my business. But still, 3 months ago, I might have been like, hey, you need a hand? Learn how to be a farmer? That might have been fun. But no, I'm not going to go down that road. #reason. So it should be fun to see him endeavor to do that. My last thing I need to do is to go over the next 24 hours. It's a Sunday. We're going to the flea market this morning. I've got the money already ready to go. I've got my partner, Yumiko, going. Yoko's going too. It's supposed to be a rainy day today. It doesn't look like it, but usually the weather's right. The sun's coming up. It's gonna blaze. I've been killing it this summer. I've made it all this time without air conditioner, and I'm kind of proud of that fact. Yumiko's like telling me. I was telling her yesterday. She's like, why don't you just? Because there's this room right next to mine that has a beautiful air conditioner. Her room that she doesn't use. She says, why don't you just move into my room for the summer, Kurt, and enjoy the air conditioner? I was like, it's a matter of principle. I want to make it through the summer without air conditioner. She says, that's a stupid principle. She's right. Speaking of temperature, look at this. It's already in the red. It's 27 degrees. 27 degrees and 85% humidity. It's going to be a killer. I'm doomed. It's red on both sides, and it's just going to get hotter. The humidity's probably going to drop down, but man, and I'll tell you, my well-being really does drop as it goes down. Unless I'm working. If I'm working hard, I feel good. I can sustain through the heat if I'm working hard. Hello, Renaissance. Good morning to you. Tim's chiming in over there on the UK at 9:36 p.m. 16.3 C and 68 68 humidity. Nice humidity, nice temperature, pretty good over there. sunny and warm. Hello, Michael. Good to see you. Tim says, I sometimes wonder if there is an art to doing nothing. LOL. I know people who go on holiday and will sit by a pool or on the beach for 2 weeks and think how they do it there. There must be a knack to it. I've had the exact same. You and I need to get together and have beers sometime, Tim, because we have so much in common. Even our reflections are the same. I wonder the exact same things. You see people doing that, sitting by the pool, or just sitting in their lazy boy all afternoon with a remote control. I don't know how they do that. Robert saying hi, hello to everybody. Hi, Robert. Tim says hi to Robert. Robert says it's in Napani, it's 32 and 38. 32 and 38. Hot. Wait, temperature is cold. 32. No, the temperature is hot, and but low humidity. Pretty not bad, huh? Hot. Kind of like what you're experiencing right now. Kind of reminds me of California. Renaissance says, how far is Shimizu is from where you live? Actually, I'm in Shimizu. Technically, I live in Yara, and I'm in Shimizu-ku. So, you're looking at it. But the actual city of Shimizu, just like another, probably another half a kilometer this way would be the border. Look at the steam rising already. Would be the border between Shimizu and Shizuoka City proper. So the actual city of Shimizu, though, is another, I'd say, 2.5 kilometers that way. Renaissance says hi to Robert. Renaissance says, listening to your story, I think the best approach in the future is to always ask for a receipt. Yes, I agree. Tim says, these days I always ask for a receipt and don't trust cashiers. Sad to say, often you will get an evil eye if you ask for one. It's more to cover yourself against that theft accusal. Yeah, it's funny. That's exactly the scary thought that I had afterwards was to protect myself from that. And it's strange to think that I might need to do that here, but you're absolutely right, Tim. Fortunately, I'm well practiced, Renaissance, in asking for receipts by virtue of my business because I'm always going about the town now doing business, and I have to I keep all my receipts for my business accounting and taxation purposes. So that's probably the reason that I didn't need it yesterday. The reason I asked for it was because I've accustomed myself to always ask for one. Tim says, I think a lot of youngsters working in shops think it odd to give a receipt automatically. Probably think it's an old-fashioned trait giving you a slip of paper. Renaissance says, you must be referring to Shinya Shokudo. I've watched the whole series. I think I liked it very much. I did not know that it is available on Netflix. That is cool. I think it is called that, yeah. I watched every episode more than once. I used to learn. I did the same thing. I used it to help me with my Japanese as well. I used to listen to it in the background when I was working. But I always got sucked in and I didn't work as well as I should. Renaissance goes on. I had a hard time with some of the dialogues, but overall it was okay. I survived and was able to understand. The Suzuki family must have been an important family. No, the Suzuki family were not an important family, my wife's family. But the Inoue family, my wife's father's family, are pillars of this community. I mean, we were out up the road talking to some neighbors, and then my wife they had asked something, and my wife had reason to mention her Uncle Inoue. And they said, I actually heard the neighbors say this. They were like, you mean that Inoue? Ano Inoue? Because yeah, my uncle, my wife's family, they're like the king of Yada, the king of the Valley of Tea. No, the Suzuki family, I don't know if we got our wires crossed here, Renaissance, but the Suzuki family are my wife's family. They're not, they're important to me, but they're very poor group of tatagu, screen and door makers, just cottage family industry, not a big business at all. 4 generations, but they're now fully out of business. One of these tiny little shops, living life in basically poverty all their life. The only thing that the only reason that things worked out well for them in the end is that when they got married, remember, the Inoues are big shots here. The Inoues gifted them a big plot of land here in Yada. to build their house. And then Yara became Beverly Hills. This is like the most desirable place to live in Shizuoka. And so then around them, around this country area, built became the place where all the doctors and lawyers, or not lawyers, there's not many lawyers in Japan, all the doctors and CEOs and businessmen in Shizuoka want to live. And suddenly, in the 2000s, they had this huge plot of land and a rickety old house. It was kind of funny. It was like the, you remember Beverly Hillbillies, you know? That was like that. And they sold all the land, which left Dad, you know, with enough money to get by for the rest of his life, and built a beautiful home down the way, which is where Yoko lives. It all worked out great in the end, but that's how it worked out. I think it is called Mukoyoshi. Are you referring to the practice of adoption? Yeah, when the man takes the wife's last name to continue the lineage. And Tim says temp has dropped from 16.3 to 15.7. Well, it is nighttime there, right? Dropping down, right? Renaissance says the art of doing nothing is the dulce far niente. All Latin cultures know this well. Well, it's clearly an art form that I don't know anything about. I can't do it. Tim says, I think the only time I do the art of nothing is after I go to bed. Yep, you and me both. And you know, Tim, I'm just kind of reconciling myself to that as well. You know, it's like, you know, some people want to cultivate the art of having a good palate and enjoying nice food, or, you know, culture and something like that. I've given those things up a long time ago. I just eat what I like. I like what I eat. I even eat what I don't like. I don't care. I don't care, and I don't care about the other stuff. And I don't care about. I'm getting to the point now that I don't care about leisure. I know it's an aspiration. Yeah, and deliberately, and if you'll spot this, if you watch today's upload or Retiring in Japan, there's a session in there that I added to the video. I left it in deliberately to show me trying to relax. It's like a 5 or 7 minute session of me sitting in my chair here with the camera right over there as the tremendous rain came down. But in hindsight, I don't even call that me relaxing, because watching a tremendous rain shower come down and being right sitting in the midst of it as it's splashing all around is more like playing a hearty game of tennis. That's not recreation. That's being in the heart of it, don't you think, Tim? I bet you could do that. I bet you could do 5 to 7 minutes of that just as readily as I could, Tim. Right? Sit in a heavy rain. Even better if there's no cover. Okay, one last check of the temperature before I drop off. Now it's 32. Wow, it went from 27 to 32 in just that short amount of time. See, as your temperature's dropping, Tim, mine's going up, and the humidity is still hanging hard at 85. Ugh. It's going to be a nasty day. Renaissance says, you have a lot of books to read still, Kurt. There's always something to do. Yeah, but I don't enjoy reading. So I force, reading is a forced affair for me. And since I've come to Japan, I just haven't been wanting to read. I mean, I'm still friggin' reading Moby Dick, still sitting there. I'd rather work. I found what I want to do. I want to work. I want to run my business. Okay, I think I've reached the end. Thanks for joining me, everybody. Hope you all have a great rest of your day. Tim adds, it's predicted to be quite chilly tonight, around 10°C. That summer slowly passing. Oh, lucky you. Last night, though, Yumiko and I turned the fan off in the middle of the night, and I noticed Yumiko had the blanket over her body, deep into the night. So, same here. Thank you, Renaissance. You have a good day as well. Have a good day, everybody. Be safe, but not too safe. Bye-bye.